We are discussing, I am actually summarizing the teachings from Brahmajala Sutta. So last time we discussed the reason attire, why are we doing this, why did we take it up? I tried to present last time. So we discussed these crucial questions about and what is practice, what is why, what do you mean by boring, what do you mean by interesting, and so these basic questions we discussed. Today, I'll first very briefly summarize the teachings and then go to the question of the importance of the teachings in our day-to-day life and how does it create the issues, how do those issues arise, which Bhante ji referred to. So the teachings I have actually already done in great detail by Deepak and Poonam and Namisha. And I also in between intervene to clarify something. So I think I'll just make a quick reference to them. What is happening in this sutta is that the prevalent world views जो भी उस समय में थे और जो और बन सकते हैं भविष्य में, उनका एक कैटलॉग भगवान ने बना दिया है कि भाई ये व्यू बन सकते हैं इस आधार पे, इस विचार पे कि मैं तो हूँ ही, which is an instinctive feeling which all of us have. Now, once we have that feeling, then you have various theories. Basically, there are 10 categories, and in those categories, there are further various grounds, which I have mentioned here, 18 here, and so on. Why do we do these speculations? We've discussed also. That is basically curiosity about the past and anxiety about the future. As human beings who are manomaya, who have a mind, who have thinking abilities, there's a natural curiosity about what happened, where was I before I was born. And if we live in a milieu when there is karma principle prevalent, everybody says जो भी हो रहा है कर्म के कारण हो रहा है, and when some things happen which are extremely difficult for us to tolerate, some bereavement at a young age or series of bereavements or terrible loss or fire or serious things which happen in life, then we wonder कि मैंने क्या कर्म किए थे कि ऐसा मेरे साथ हो रहा है. And then the all kinds of things, theories, we try to go to different people, we क्यों हुआ होगा, क्या कारण होगा. I know of many people who haven't even gone for past life regression, and not just for this past curiosity about the why this is happening, including for meditation. One person had very difficult meditative experiences which couldn't be understood. So he did past life regression to find out हुआ क्या, हो क्या रहा है, मैंने क्या ऐसा कर दिया कि मैं साधना कर ही नहीं पाता हूँ. So this curiosity, जो भूतकाल की उत्कंठा है और भविष्य की आशंका लगी रहती है, फ्यूचर में क्या होगा. अब हमने पढ़ा है थोड़ा बहुत, लगता है फ्यूचर में कहीं एनिमल realm में तो नहीं चला जाऊंगा, तो वो एक एंग्जाइटी बनी रहती है. what am I going to happen in future, not just in the immediate future, in the post-mortem future, that also remains there. So various speculations, these are the basics of speculations. So as to remove this discomfort arising from not understanding my present and apprehension about the future, because that creates unpleasantness, discomfort. So we create suitable theories, suitable speculations based on our cravings which are there, cravings of sensory pleasures, craving of bhavatanha, vibhavatanha, और फिर हम इसके अनुरूप ऐसी ऐसी थ्योरीज बनाते हैं जिससे कि हमारे को मन शांत हो जाए. भविष्य की चिंता है कि भविष्य में क्या होगा, मर जाऊंगा कि नहीं, मैं रहूंगा कि नहीं रहूंगा. सो वी हैव एटर्नलिज्म कि नहीं नहीं, कुछ शरीर तो चला जाएगा, तुम एक रूप में किसी न किसी सूक्ष्म रूप में बने रहोगे. और वी हैव पार्शियल एटर्नलिज्म, नहीं नहीं, एक कुछ लोग हैं जो बिल्कुल हमेशा रहते हैं, देवी हैं, देवता हैं, और तुम उनके अंश हो तो तुम उसमें मिले रहोगे. एंड देन कैसे पैदा हुआ, तो ये है कि भाई अचानक ही हो गए, कोई कारण नहीं लगता. इस तरह की बातें काफी लोग सुनते हैं. And these are, of course, are about the world, which normally don't bother us. Endless equivocation वही करते हैं जिनको समझ नहीं आता, and those who are involved in philosophical discussions, we may not be involved in that, whether world is finite, infinite. And but speculations about the future are very much there, what will I have, what happened to me? और क्योंकि ये सारी theories ऐसा नहीं कि लोगों ने जस्ट इमेजिन करना शुरू कर दिया, वो सब लोग ध्यान करते थे, बहुत गहरे ध्यान करते थे। उसके आधार पे उन्होंने अपने, क्योंकि एक आत्मभाव है तो उसके आधार पे थ्योरीज बना ली। कोई किस ध्यान पे पहुंचा तो उसके अनुरूप थ्योरी बनानी, कोई प्रथम ध्यान पे पहुंचा, दूसरे पे पहुंचा, या किसी ने बहुत प्योरिटी का जीवन जिया, शील पालन किए, जनरॉसिटी की, थोड़ी साधना की, समझने की कोशिश की, तो वो एक रेलम तक पहुंचने की बात हुई, उसको लगा कि यहाँ तक पहुंच जाएंगे। किसी ने देखा कि कोई अगले रेलम तक पहुंचता है, और इस तरह से एक एक करके सारे रेलम तक पहुंचने की बात समझ आई, तो इसलिए नाना प्रकार की स्पेकुलेशंस बने। ये सारे के सारे बने, इसमें एक अंडरलाइंग थीम था कि मैं तो हूँ। क्वेश्चन वाज हु एम आई, नॉट व्हेन यू आस्क ए क्वेश्चन लाइक दैट, इट मीन्स देयर इज समथिंग, एंड दैट्स ऑल आई हैव टू फाइंड आउट, बिकॉज इट इज एविडेंट कि मैं शरीर तो नहीं हूँ, वो बदलता है, तो कुछ और है जो मैं होऊंगा। उस आधार पे ये सब सीरीज बनी। और इसका बिखू बोध ने बड़ा सुंदर सेंटेंस यूज किया, तो मैंने उसको रिपीट किया। फीलिंग इज द बेट ऑफ द राउंड, राउंड मीनिंग संसारा, which will be swallowed when left unexamined, but will be discarded if the hook it conceals is detected. That's a beautiful language he has used. कि जो वेदना है, जो फीलिंग है हमारी, वो एक तरह का मार का हुक है जो हमको पकड़ के रखता है। वो हम उसको अगर ठीक से देखते नहीं है, वो छुपा हुआ रहता है, तो फिर तो हम उसके खा ही जाएंगे, उस जो टेम्पटेशन है उसके अंदर पड़ जाते हैं। एंड देन वी गो राउंड द साइकिल ऑफ बर्थ एंड डेथ। बट अगर हम उसको ठीक से एग्जामिन करें तो हम उसको छोड़ सकते हैं। और एग्जामिन क्या करने का बेसिक मतलब क्या है, कि उसको 5 तरह से डिस्कस करें, समझें। वो हम कई बार चर्चा कर चुके हैं। समुदय कैसे हो रहा, उत्पत्ति कैसे हो रही है, निरोध कैसे हो सकता है, उसमें मजा क्या है, आस्वादन क्या है, और उस आस्वादन में खतरा क्या है। ये की फैक्टर है कि हम उसमें खतरे को देखें, क्योंकि खतरा देखेंगे तभी हम उस कांटे को छोड़ पाएंगे। मछली को अगर पता चल जाए कि कांटा है तो फिर वो नहीं जाएगी, लेकिन पता नहीं चलता, कांटा के ऊपर कुछ खाने की चीज लगी हुई है, तो वो आदिनव को देख नहीं पाते हैं। अगर ये ठीक से देख पाए तो फिर निस्सरण करना आसान हो जाता है। तो इस प्रकार से तन्हा फिर नहीं जाती है। तो इस कारण से भगवान कहते हैं उसमें कि ये सारे व्यूज उसमें अराइज होते हैं जो डू नॉट नो दिस दिस प्रोसेस एंड वर नॉट एबल टू सी इट प्रॉपरली। मतलब ज्ञान दर्शनम नहीं है, ज्ञान एंड दर्शनम, वर नॉट एबल टू सी थिंग्स एज दे रियली आर and get carried away by appearances, then they have to satisfy their anxiety, to satisfy their curiosity, they make certain hypotheses and then work on that. तो क्या होगा अगर if we can know and see what will happen, then we will understand the dependent origination of all phenomena, including our birth, including our death, including all the experiences. And that is Padicca Samutpad is actually based on knowing and seeing. Of course, sometimes we term it as right view, but actually it is the way it is. It's not a view. That's why it says it is a realization which transcends all views. And this discussion जो हमने सूत्र में किया, वो एक ही सूत्र से, it is spread all over the Tipitaka, and I've just listed these suttas. You can see there are two samuttas, Khanda Samyutta and Salayatan Samyutta. इसमें 159 सूत्र हैं, इसमें 248 सूत्र हैं, जो इसी चीज को अलग अलग तरीके से डिस्कस करते हैं। फिर ये और प्रोमिनेंट सूत्र मैंने डिस्कस किए, इनमें से महानिदान सूत्र अगला सूत्र होगा जो हम चर्चा करेंगे। उसमें भी प्रत्यक्ष समुत्पाद का डिटेल है, लेकिन फिर उसमें थ्योरीज ऑफ सेल्फ भी है, उनके ओरिजिन भी है, किस तरह से इंडिपेंडेंट अराइजिंग को नहीं समझने से वी क्रिएट थ्योरीज ऑफ सेल्फ। Then these are some of the very interesting and powerful suttas. You can just note them down, or I can send the list so that you can, those of you who wish to pursue it further and understand it in great detail, you can do it. And the logic behind all of them is that all five khandas or six ayatanas are beyond our control, impermanent, dukkha, and anatta. And the other postulates which are discussed in the suttas are like world is finite or infinite, what happens to arahant after death. So these questions Buddha dismisses as irrelevant to the understanding and cessation of suffering. So there's the general uh, arguments which are given to, because in these suttas arguments are also given, especially when there is a discussant. Chula Satchak Sutta mein Satchak is a discussant and he wants to understand. Here Malandya Putta is a discussant. So Vachakota is a discussant. So therefore, these things are there. And incidentally, there is a sutta in Madhyam Nikaya called Panchataya Sutta, which is almost of the same kind, similar kind as the Brahmajala Sutta. उसको कई लोग उसको कहते हैं, इट इज ए ब्रह्म मध्यम निकाय वर्शन ऑफ ब्रह्मजाल सूत्र, उसी तरह का है, बट उसमें थोड़ी थोड़ी आर्गुमेंट भिन्न है. तो इफ somebody is interested, we can look that into. So this is just for sake of completion that I am mentioning it. Then we come to the importance of this sutta from our practice and day-to-day life. Now, therefore, I'm focusing on the key thing and leaving aside some other things which could be important in some cases, just focusing on the key parts. So the part which Bhanteji referred to, I mentioned it earlier also, but I think it bears repetition. See, we are living in a non-Buddhist country. We're surrounded by people with totally different views, which must be one of the views which are mentioned in the Brahmajala Sutta. And this, we may have people within our family, within our friendship, within our office, within our friend circle, community, who have totally different view. It could be an Indian context. If you see in the Vedantic context, we have literalist view. We have partial literalist view, which means a theistic view. We have a nihilistic view also. So all these kinds of views are quite prevalent. So if I see the bulk of our community, the community which follows the Sanatana Dharma and others, most of us have been born in families where the theistic notion, existence of a god or a deity, and devotion to that is seen as the main practice. The Advaita part, or the eternalistic Advaita part, is rarely a part of discussion, except in the scholarly, when the head of the family is a, say, Vedantic scholar or something. Mostly it is this. And I'm just focusing on whatever I have observed. No, bulk of us do observe religious festivals. We have various devotional hymns played in our homes by people who are like them or in the surroundings at various times. We have different chants, bhajans, scriptures, and each of them has a view. Mostly the partial eternalistic view. There is a eternal devata or a deity, and there are us. Some people believe we are part of it. Some people believe we are totally different. And those kind of differences are there, but basically, devotional aspect is prominent. Now, we may, in our own understanding, feel these things don't affect me. I understand Buddha's teachings properly, and it doesn't affect me. But we do have to family obligations, society obligations, celebrate various festivals. Now, all of them have an underlying view, primarily theistic view. And of course, in some of the cases, there are deeper views, which rarely people investigate. But theism is constantly seen there. So unconsciously, we are embedded in an environment where theistic views are prominent. Now, Buddha's right view is quite different, isn't it? And when we are practicing and as we are trying to get established in right view, we have an alternate view all surrounding us constantly and constantly impinging upon us. So unless we understand the genesis and implications of these views, it will be very difficult to evolve a healthy response. And Brahmajala Sutta exactly does that, actually. It tells you the genesis of it. We generally have very strange notions about the other views. Now, what I've observed in myself and in hundreds of friends, once we get first exposed to because we're not from Buddhist background. So once we first get exposed to teachings of the Buddha, we have been born and brought up for substantial number of years, 20, 25, 30, depending on when we start, in a certain worldview, a theistic worldview. And then when we go there and we find a totally different worldview, then it creates a disjoint, this kind of discomfort. And then we try to respond in a variety of ways. And some of the responses which I have seen, which basically arise due to lack of clarity. The most common response which I have seen, which I also suffered, in spite of the fact that before coming to the teachings of the Buddha, I was actually for 10 years following those things, very seriously studying Vedanta, Upanishads, and all that. But slowly, especially with respect to theistic views, puja, chanting, rituals, it gets branded as all superstition. There are no gods, no devas, it's all foolish. And so we try to look down upon those people, maybe even our close family. It happened with me. It happens with large number of people. You find you may not say anything out of courtesy and decency, but inside there remains inner conflict. that ये क्यों ऐसा कर रहे हैं? And then sometimes they would say, भाई चलो तुम भी चलो पूजा कर लो, ये कर लो, and you would, very vehemently oppose it or not go or find way out. This is one kind of a response we have to this conflict. Difference views, difference in the world views. Second response is that some people totally give up Buddha's path because they find it is not matching, or they get put off by the teachings in some way and the way it is presented. And I've seen that also happen. Conflicts I've seen happen. During the course, I've seen people get agitated and create a racket. And of course, after the courses, they would leave. And we know the percentage of people who follow the path after attending a course is very low. So this is what happens with quite a few. Just give it up. Because clarity is not there about Buddha's path and what exactly is theistic path, and we don't have a clarity on that. Then the third thing, which is modern secular society, you kind of shortchange the teachings of the Buddha, you clip it out and take the versions which give me a good feeling. So secular Buddhism is also a good feeling method of truncating the Buddha's teachings. So you discard rebirth, karma, redefine nibbana, and say very elegant example of it, very helpful and very prevalent, is the mindfulness-based stress reduction. So the focus is on reducing the stress, and you forget about who bothers what will be happen in next life, and who is worried about karma and nibbana and all that. Yeah, you live a good life, have a nice time. And now if you look at it carefully, implicit in it are number of views. Implicit in it is an annihilationist view. भाई ये जीवन है, उसके बाद कोई पता नहीं, कहते तो है रीबर्थ है, तो हमने किसने देखा है? टिपिकल साइंटिफिक व्यू सो कॉल्ड. देन निब्बाना पता नहीं क्या है, निब्बाना यहाँ पे है, वी हैड ए निब्बाना हियर एंड नाउ व्यू, that you have a good life, that is nibbana. Why bother about other things? So the materialistic notion of nibbana here and now is hidden in that. And then there is the hidden fortuitous origination view. पता नहीं कहाँ से आए, कैसा पैदा हो गया. Mostly scientists will say, well, mother and father's union produces it, and there's no being वो कहाँ से आए, पहले कहाँ थे, is useless. That's the time you are produced, and that's it. So these views are all embedded in it. And if you have understood what Buddha's teachings are, we'll see what is the great loss when you practice this kind of a Buddha's teachings. Fourth one again, which is my favorite, and I also spent considerable time in that, is that basic notion, which is a part of our Vedantic thought, that all truth is one and all sages say it differently. So all paths should lead to the same goal. And this is a very noble, apparently noble way of looking at harmony in the religions and producing harmony and all that. So we try to harmonize the teachings of the Buddha with the current teachings. For example, there have been a lot of efforts in harmonizing it with Advaita philosophy because it matches to some extent. So what it therefore does is some reinterpretation of the teaching. Some things are reinterpreted so as to fit with it and to make them similar to the tradition. You make suitable models. And it actually results in a lot of meandering. At least it has resulted in my case, and I've seen it happen in many cases. Trying to see that these things are all originated from Indian subcoil, so they must all be similar. There has to be similarity. They must actually be the same. Similar is one. They must actually be the same. So Nibbana is same as pure consciousness, and therefore, and same as emptiness, and therefore there's no difference, and therefore it is done with very noble objectives of trying to harmonize the society. But as that we have studied from Buddha's teachings, this sutta tells us that's not true. This is not correct. Now, what does it mean? It's not correct. Does it mean that you have to look down upon them? And there's that famous teaching of the Buddha: if you think you are superior to somebody, or inferior to somebody, or equal to somebody, then you are deluded. That's a fundamental delusion. So the whole idea of my philosophy, my view being better than others is a delusion. It's against the Buddha's teachings. So once you see that, then we try to understand the main issue involved in what is the problem with our understanding this issue of theistism, which is kind of prominently followed in the society. हमें उससे क्या problem है? So the teachings which we did, study which we did of the Devas and the 31 realms, that is the real issue. No? Theistic views are that there are deities. At least in Indian, there are multiple deities. And there is a hierarchy also in those deities. We know that in theism, in the Indian theism. Now, we need to see that these devas and deities and brahmas and yakshas and various levels of devas, they do figure in Buddha's teachings very prominently, very largely. And devas are in Tipitaka, of course, there are number of people who get carried away by the pleasant feelings and pleasant situations there. But in general, they are wise, virtuous, interested in spiritual progress. And Sakka and many others have followed the Buddha and attained Sotapatti Phala. This is recorded in the Tipitaka. I'm saying on the basis of that only. Now, if you see the attitude of the Buddha towards the Devas, then you find that the kind of mindset which we develop of contempt towards people who believe in them and try to placate and do that, it's not really necessarily in tune with the teachings of the Buddha. I have written some of these things which are so common in us. For example, Ratan Sutta, supposed to be one of the prominent suttas, and we chant it as a protection. And there, the first two verses, if you see, what is the Buddha telling? The first two verses, I'll just read them out. Yani bhutani samagatani bhummani vayani va antalikke sabbeva bhuta sumana bhavantu athopi sakkaccha sunantu bhasitam tasmahi bhutani sametha sabbe mettam karotha manusiya pajaya Devacharatra च हरन्ति ये बलिं तस्माहिने रक्षत अपमत्ता. सो ट्रांसलेशन इज, जो भी प्राणी यहाँ एकत्र हुए हैं धरती पर या अंतरिक्ष में, सभी लोग प्रसन्न हो, सभी प्राणी प्रसन्न हो, हमारे कथन को आदर पूर्वक सुने. सभी प्राणी ध्यान से सुने, मनुष्य मात्र के प्रति मैत्री का भाव रखें. जो दिन रात आपको भेंट अर्पित करते हैं उनकी प्रमाद रहित होकर रक्षा करें. These are the words which are being addressed to Bhutani. Bhuta is basically refers to the spirits, the beings who are in the non-human realms, various levels. So he's addressing them that since these lay people are making offerings to you, you should protect them. These are the words of the Buddha. And there's the constant interaction between the Devas and the Buddha and the human beings. In fact, many of the teachings which we recite are originally given by the Devas, and Buddha approves of them. Atanatiya Sutta is entirely chanted by the Devas. At the end, they seek his approval and they tell him that if this Paritta is chanted, then some of the yakhas who are not in favor of your teaching, who try to torment the monks when they go in wilderness, if they are chanting this, then they'll give them protection, because you have told those naughty yakhas that if you don't behave properly, will not allow you to come into the Deva Loka and other realms. So this is how the whole sutta goes. So this is given by the Devas, actually the Vesvana Deva, who is the leader of the Chatur Maharajika Loka, which is the first Deva realm. Mangal Sutta is chanted by Buddha in response to request from a Deva. What is our true welfare? Tayana Gatha, Tayan is a Devaputta, whose Gathas we chant with. Aditya Sutta is again a Devaputta chant. He chants it to Buddha and he approves of it. Tayan Gatha he chants to Buddha, Buddha approves, just approves in silence. That's it. Mahasamaya Sutta is actually a very interesting one. The whole range of devas from all realms come there to Kapilvatthu, where Buddha is sitting with 500 arhants, and then they pay respects. And if you read the names of all of them, all the deities of Indian pantheon are there in that. Everything, everybody. You name anybody and you'll find that. And this sutta is used as a paritta everywhere in the Buddhist countries, because they say when you chant it, devas feel pleased and then they help you in whatever task you are doing. Then we have Devata Samyutta, and in the text, 81 suttas are there. Devaputta Sambutta, Mahara Samyutta, Bhikkhuni Samyutta. Bhikkhuni Samyutta is entirely interaction of bhikkhunis with Mahara. Brahma Samyutta, Yakha Samyutta, Sakka Samyutta, and then there are Naga, Supanna, Gandhabba. These are quite repetitious. I have not written their numbers. So so many suttas are directly addressed by the Devas, question to the Buddha and answers them. And very, very wise questions and obviously wise answers, which are a part of our teaching. So, and similarly, the Devas help the seekers. You have Bhaya gets hint from his Deva, former relative of Deva, to go there and get this. Similarly, there are other examples there. So all that I'm trying to say is that there is, in Buddhism, the interaction of Buddha and the monks and the lay persons with the Devas is not depreciated or kind of looked down upon as superstition or something of that kind. In fact, Buddha recommends Devata Anusati as one of the methods of cultivating good qualities. He says, when a noble disciple recollects the Shraddha, Shila, learning, that is Bahusutta, generosity and wisdom of both themselves and the deity, then their mind is not full of greed, hate, delusion, and they feel inspired. It gives them joy. That leads to tranquility, and that then leads to the investigation into the nature of reality. Yatha Bhuta Jnana Darshanam. So if you understand these 31 realms and see where they are discussed in the Brahmajala Sutta, and we widen our scope of inquiry into these suttas, we find that Buddha advocates a healthy relationships with devas. And that could be our, I mean, since our conditions are different, that could be our guideline for how do we relate to our friends, our society, which is so much theistic. We don't depreciate them and look down upon them as superstitious, and because Devta Anusati is a recommended practice. So if they are also doing Devta Anusati, and if they are doing all that, many people don't do that. So we can help. We can have, once we have clarity on what are the qualities of Devas, how does one become a Deva? By these qualities, intensifying these qualities. We understand that, yeah, these are worth doing. So and our relationship with this becomes much more healthy. And at least I have in my personal life, I've seen with coming into contact with the Thai monks and seeing their practices, so-called rituals, and understanding what they are doing, which they quite generously explain what is the significance of various things. We can see that this is the relationship with devas can be a very good help to us in practice, in our purifying our mind. So that's the practice is basically for that purpose. Whichever kushal upaya works for somebody, that can be used. So I think I must stop now. Time is up. So I'll stop here. And probably some more clarity would emerge by questions.
Okay, so Dazat, thank you very much. So if people have something to say, there's a theistic की जरा थोड़ी हिंदी बता दो पहले आप. I was going to interrupt you, but maybe you can clarify this now, and then we can go to questions.
ईश्वर में विश्वास, can say that way. देवताओं में विश्वास, various levels of विश्वास. डिफरेंट पीपल अलग अलग लोगों के अलग अलग विश्वास बात बनते हैं कि ये देवता लोग जो हैं पावरफुल लोग हैं और ये हमको मदद कर सकते हैं हमारे जीवन में परेशानियों को कम करने के लिए. बेसिकली तो यही कारण है, हम सब लोग जो करते आ रहे हैं पास्ट में, उसका वो कारण तो यही है. द concept of moksha and all that comes under those who seek that point. So that is a more subtle point. The time is not there, so I'm not getting into that direction. But I'm focusing on the real practical issue which I've seen happen in families of the meditators, where different people have different understanding and meditators get into real trouble. तो जो देवताओं में विश्वास है, विभिन्न देवताओं में विभिन्न लेवल के, उसको थीस्टिक व्यू कहा गया. जैसे वहां पे तो क्रिएटर की बात कही गई थी. हमारे यहाँ भी वो क्रिएटर का कॉन्सेप्ट है कुछ हद तक, बट जो पार्शियल लेटरलिज्म का व्यू वहां पे था उसमें यही बात आई थी कि एक ब्रह्मा को एक भ्रम हो जाता है कि आई एम द क्रिएटर, एंड दैट गेट्स परपिचुएटेड बाय द राइट वेरियस रीजंस. सो देयर इज ए टू लेवल ऑफ रियलिटी. एक कुछ लोग जो हैं परमानेंट हैं, कुछ जो बाकी लोग जो धरती पे हैं वो इम्परमानेंट हैं, एंड देन दैट रिलेशनशिप इज डेवलप्ड सो एज टू have a healthy relationship with the creator. Because when you take somebody as a creator, you will have devotion and respect and try to understand what pleases him, what good qualities should we get, and that's how the relationship develops.
Ji, thanks. Okay, so we can go ahead. Ji, Saksham, and then Payal.
जी. बोलो बेटा सक्षम.
थैंक यू सर. आपने जो फोर्थ पॉइंट बताया कि दैट वी ट्राई टू रिकंसाइल
हमारी आवाज ठीक नहीं आ रही बेटा, कट रही है बीच में से.
paths in our country with Buddhism, and we try to see that they are common. तो उसमें आपने आई थिंक थोड़ा because we like it in some sense, but better है क्या सर? बेटर है क्या?
हाँ अभी आ रही है, बीच बीच में
हेलो,
कट रही थी।
हाँ, अच्छा। तो सर आपने जो फोर्थ पॉइंट बताया जिसमें दैट जो हमारी कंट्री में अदर थीस्टिक पाथ्स हैं, हम उनको बुद्धिज्म से रिकंसाइल करते हैं, एंड वी ट्राई टू think in a way that all paths lead to the same goal because we sort of like it. हमें प्लेजेंट लगता है, बट मेरे को इसके दूसरे एंगल से इसका एक्चुअली पूछना था कि टेक्निकली एंड प्रैक्टिकली जो लेट्स से अद्वैता वेदांता में मुक्ति और मोक्ष की डेफिनेशन है, is that basically the same experience or the same thing as our Buddhism wala Nibbana and moksha?
I mean, it's a the main point is they lead to same goal, है ना? Can they
Yes,
lead
sir.
to same goal? The Brahmajala Sutta says clearly no. That's it. They can lead you to the highest realms. They can lead you to the Brahma realms, and if you practice meditation properly, if you meditate on a deity, and then you treat it as a kammathana and you get absorbed in it, and then you develop a jhanas of level, and you can reach various levels of higher realms of existence where the lifespan is virtually, it looks like infinite, million years and so on. But according to the Brahmajala Sutta, this, he says, they will not lead you to freedom from the cycle of birth and death. Conceptually, वहां पे भी यही बात कही जाती है अद्वैता में, freedom from the cycle of birth and death. So according to this sutta, no, that will not lead to the same goal. That's
सर
the crucial,
आपने
that's a very
सर
crucial
आप
difference.
सर सर आप कह रहे हैं कि अद्वैता में यही बात कही जाती है कि
पाथ की बात हो रही है ना, पाथ।
इट
गोल,
विल लीड टू
गोल सेम हो सकता है,
फ्रीडम
गोल सेम
फ्रॉम
हो सकता है, पाथ जो है वो, पाथ की बात कर रहे हैं ना। ये फिलॉसफी जो है एटर्नलिज्म की फिलॉसफी, भगवान कहते हैं ये एटर्नलिज्म की फिलॉसफी आपको वहां तक नहीं ले जा सकती, ये बात। उसकी
ओके,
डिटेल्स
बट
हैं,
द
बहुत सारी
गोल
डिटेल्स
और
हैं, उसके फायदे होते हैं, मैम
हाँ,
खुद, मैं कैन
ओके,
टेस्टिफाई टू दैट, and it can take you to very high levels. And this sutta basically mentions that very explicitly. He says, I know to which realm it will lead to. Okay?
ओके सर। थोड़ा सा इसमें मतलब ऐसा लग रहा है दैट डज दैट मीन कि एनी अंडर एनी कॉम्पिटेंट और Advaita teacher will like do people following or practicing Advaita never reach moksha?
I don't know.
Is it like
I
that?
don't even know what do they follow exactly. What are their practices? The kind of practices which I was taught to some extent and I've seen, they're extremely good. They're very refining. They refine your mind, purify the mind, remove craving, remove. Everybody talks of removing craving, aversion. So Advaita also talks of being free from attachment to body mind complex. It also talks of that, of course. So what I practice, they do exactly what different people do. We're talking of the view. So kindly understand that. We are talking of the view. So with that view, practices of what are the details of those practices, that's a different question altogether. That's a domain. Then we must interact with somebody who's following and practicing it. Now, I'm not here to say this is superior, that is inferior. We are not here that. We are understanding Brahmajala Sutta and we are understanding various views. And he says, practices governed by that view. He mentioned the origination of those views arose because of people seeing that their past life also they were there, earlier life also they were there, earlier life, and therefore they concluded that we are the same person who was there in the one eon before, and who was in the 100 lives before, and 90 lives before, and now. So they concluded he's the same person. And what is Buddha's critique is that that's not true. And therefore, that leads, because it's not that they're the same person or different person, because there is no person. Now, that's a very fundamental difference in the view. What practices are being done and what effect those practices will produce is a different matter. But with this view, holding to this view, complete liberation, according to Buddha, would not happen. Now, we don't have to go about telling the great teachers of Advaita that you are confused and you're liberated and they're not doing. We don't know what exactly they are doing. It's not known. I have greatest regard for many of them. So it's not a question of uh, putting down any tradition. It's a question of understanding Buddha's teaching. That's all. I don't want to get into that minefield of saying ours is superior to others, because that will be another wrong view. Just presenting what Buddha's teachings are. That a belief in eternalism, a belief in Atma, which is eternal, is not going to lead to this kind of a complete liberation, because there is a sense of self involved in it. That is the teaching. That's what we are mentioning. Okay.
Got it, sir. Thank you so much, sir. That's quite clear now.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Payal.
जी सर, मेरा एक क्वेश्चन तो सक्षम ने पूछ ही लिया। आपने दूसरे का भी थोड़ा सा जवाब दिया, बट आई स्टिल वांट टू आस्क सर, जैसे महर्षि रामानंद हैं और भी ऐसे बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो ऑलमोस्ट सिमिलर बुद्धिस्ट उसमें ही बात करते हैं, हु एम आई, कि बॉडी नहीं है, फीलिंग नहीं है, ऑलमोस्ट बहुत सिमिलर उसमें बात करते हैं। तो जैसे हम बोलते हैं कि वो अकॉर्डिंग टू इन द लाइट ऑफ ब्रह्मजाल सुत्ता वो
See, when we talk of personalities, you'll get into real trouble. So please don't talk of personalities. That's not fair. We are talking of views. We are talking of how you look at the world, how you look at human beings. So please focus on that. I have greatest regard for Ramana Maharshi. I spent 1 week there, you know that. So
हाँ जी, बट मैं बोल रही हूँ सर, वो सब सिमिलर बातें हैं, तो
सिमिलर है, सेम नहीं है. That's the point.
अच्छा, अच्छा.
तभी तो मैंने कहा ना, the point which Buddha is pointing out is very specific. So kindly don't go away from there. It's a very specific point, that belief in self of any kind. Belief in self of any kind is a restriction. That's the point.
सर मेरा एक्चुअल क्वेश्चन ये है कि सिमिलर है, बट फिर हम कैसे जाने कि डिफरेंशिएशन एंड टू नो द रियल फ्रॉम नॉट, क्योंकि बहुत सिमिलर है एंड येट नॉट.
That's why this sutta is being studied, beta. The reason for studying the sutta was this. It challenges your faith in Buddha. I know that it can. Because a person like me would say, यार ऐसे थोड़ा ना होता है कि आप इस तरह की बातें कर रहे हैं. So you have to understand, you have to appreciate what he's saying that. And then you can put a question mark, I have no problem. But understand what he's saying very clearly. And if you read that book, Bhikkhu Bodhi is clearly mentioned. This eternalistic view refers to Advaita, partial eternalist refers to Vishishtadvaita, and Dvaita philosophy. Bhikkhu Bodhi is clearly mentioned it. I'm just quoting.
सर एक बार प्लीज रिपीट करेंगे क्या उन्होंने क्या बोला इन द एंड,
कि ये जो भगवान ने एटर्नलिस्टिक व्यू जिसे कहा है, शाश्वतवाद जो कहा है, इट इज रेफर्स टू द नोशन ऑफ Advaita Vedanta. Then the partial eternalism refers to Vishishta Advaita, and partly it refers to Dvaita, where the total independence is there. Then there is Sankhya, which is interlap, mix of the other two. So we are talking at the level of philosophy, at the world view. We're not talking at the level of practice at all. So we have to understand what is being mentioned.
सर एक क्वेश्चन है, अगर वो ज्यादा कंट्रोवर्शियल वो ना हो ऐसे, तो क्या किसी ट्रेडिशन में कोई और निब्बान प्राप्त नहीं किया है क्या?
I would not like to answer that question.
ओके सर, नो इश्यूज।
अगर कहीं लिखा होता है इन्होंने तो मैं बता देता, इसमें लिखा नहीं है. आई एम जस्ट स्ट्रिक्टली कन्फाइनिंग टू दिस सुत्ता and its commentary given by various people and as summarized by Bhikkhu Bodhi. I don't want to thrust my
नहीं
views
ठीक
in.
है सर, हाँ जी ठीक है, ठीक है।
It's
Thank
for
you.
us to reflect deeply on this. That's why I said the sutta is challenging you. You have to then see. You may say, Buddha got it wrong. Why not? There are many people who say it. Or they say it is same thing. Yeah, maybe. Because you can never be sure what exactly does other person mean by pure consciousness, what he means by that. There are so many versions. Even within the Advaita school, there is a new Advaita, there's the Advaita, then they don't agree with each other. There's so many. I mean, and all of them have their roots in the same set of books. See the wonderful thing. All these differing views have their root in the same set of books, the Upanishads and Brahma Sutra. Same set of views are being interpreted. If I were to give you a table of the views, there are about 12 views originating from the Vedanta. अभी तो मैंने बहुत लिमिटेड इसको 3 ही लेवल में कहा है ना, भिक्खु बोधि ने भी 3 ही लगा, मगर देर आर अदर सेमी विशिष्ट अद्वैता, सेमी द्वैता, जिस तरह के कई सारे वर्जन हैं, एंड देयर दोज आर प्रेवलेंट इवन नाउ, सम ऑफ देम आर प्रेवलेंट इवन नाउ. हम लोगों ने उनके नाम सुने हुए हैं, आपने भी सुने होंगे. they are teaching, their followers, their temples are available in our country even now. So we're not trying to put down anything, we're just trying to understand what is the importance of view. What is the importance of view in our practice?
जी सर, थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू।
Deepak, yeah. Deepak Suri, Deepak
जी
Girani.
जी
Sorry.
हाँ जी दीपक सूरी।
बोलो.
वो वही सवाल जो है एक अटका हुआ है, मैंने कहा एक बार फिर आपसे एक्सचेंज कर लूँ व्यूज। जो इंडिया में मोस्ट प्रिवेलेंट व्यू है कि हमारे अंदर एक आत्मा है जो परमात्मा का अंश है, और अगर निर्वाण होगा हमारा तो ये आत्मा फ्री होकर परमात्मा में मर्ज हो जाएगी, और हम परमात्मा की पावर को, परमात्मा को ऑल माइटी कहते हैं, ऑल माइटी, और हम उसकी पावर को इन्वोक करते हैं अपने वेल बीइंग के लिए, अपनी सिक्योरिटी के लिए।
जी.
और ये हमारे जो हम पढ़ रहे हैं उसमें भी भगवान बुद्ध कहते हैं कि उनका एक्सप्लेनेशन डिफरेंट है, जहाँ तक मुझे समझ आई, कि हमने अपने चित्त को संस्कारों से विहीन करना है, सारी तृष्णाएं समाप्त करनी है, तो ऑटोमेटिकली हमारा रीबर्थ नहीं होगा। दैट इज द कंसेप्ट ऑफ निब्बाना इन आवर ट्रेडिशन विच वी आर स्टडिंग। लेकिन हम फिर भी जो है, और ये बुद्धा जो हैं और हमारे अरहंत जो हैं, आफ्टर द लीव द बॉडी कहाँ जाते हैं, ये सवाल अभी सामने खड़ा है। लेकिन फिर भी हम उनको आए दिन जो है उनकी बुद्धों को, प्रत्येक बुद्धों को, अरहंतों की पावर्स को इन्वोक करते हैं अपने वेल बीइंग के लिए, अपनी सिक्योरिटी के लिए। तो ये थोड़ा सा पे कुछ प्रकाश डालेंगे कि इसमें क्या थिंकिंग में फ्लॉ है?
We've discussed this question so many times, dear.
जी 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 हाँ।
Yeah, I have nothing new to add really.
अच्छा, ठीक है, क्योंकि इन्वोक तो हम अभी भी आए दिन करते हैं।
अभी तो हम बेसिकली इस पे डिस्कस कर रहे हैं, जो मैंने अब स्लाइड दिखाई है, आप देख पा रहे हैं?
हाँ
स्क्रीन पे है ना?
ठीक है ठीक है।
ये हम डिस्कस कर रहे हैं कि ये व्यूज क्या हैं। जो आपने व्यूज कहे वो पार्शियल एटर्नलिज्म में आते हैं।
हाँ जी, हाँ जी,
ठीक है। और उसमें भी उसके जो सबसेट्स है ना, एक पार्शियल एटर्नलिज्म है कि मैं उसमें मिल जाता हूँ, दूसरा यह है कि मैं उसके साथ भिन्न हूँ, So there are various varieties. There are various philosophical views, various speculation views, and he is pointing out what is the power of the sutta is. I'm not sure whether we are able to appreciate it fully. Power of the sutta is it is telling you how it has been created. It's not telling you कि इसमें ये logically ये गलत है, ये ठीक नहीं है, निर्वाण ये है, निर्वाण वो है, ईश्वर है कि नहीं है. He's not bothered. He's telling you कि ये concept of ईश्वर कैसे आ गया. How did the concept of creator arise? And how did the concept of creator and creation arise? He's telling you that based on his view, not view, based on his vision, direct vision of 93 eons. He's directly telling you this is how it has happened. Now it is for us to accept or not. I'm not saying that you accept it, but there's no way we can accept it or reject it unless we have Shraddha in the whole teaching. We don't have the ability to verify it. But the point which is being made is that this is the origin of these views based on craving for pleasant feelings. It has been put so simply, you can't imagine that these views have all arisen because craving for pleasant feeling. We don't like unpleasantness. We don't like the एक आशंका बनी रहती है तो अच्छा नहीं लगता. उसको सॉल्व करना है ना. अपने मन को बहलाने के लिए एक अच्छा सोल्यूशन निकालना चाहिए जो कि सिर्फ इमेजिनेशन ना हो, ध्यान के आधार पे. ध्यान के आधार पे है यार, तो ध्यान के आधार पे तो ठीक ही होगा ना. ये हमको समझाता है कि जो ध्यान का जो अनुभव है वो कितना डिसेप्टिव हो सकता है. प्लीज ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड इट. कि आप ध्यान के वो 8वां ध्यान कर रहा है. इमेजिन, हम सोच भी नहीं सकते आजकल के समय में कोई 8वां ध्यान भी कर पाएगा, कोई 6ठा ध्यान भी कर पाएगा, 7वां ध्यान कर पाएगा. उस पराकाष्ठा में पहुंच के कंक्लूजन गलत निकाल लिए. उसको कह दिए कि वो परसिपिएंट इमोर्टैलिटी है जी, क्योंकि उसने देख लिया कि बंदा मरने के बाद उस रेल में पहुंच गया. उसकी इतनी एबिलिटी थी कि वो देख पाया कि ये जो मेरा साधक, जो मेरा मित्र था ऋषि, वो मरने के बाद उस रेल में पहुंच गया. अरे ग्रेट. एंड वहां पर द लाइफ स्पैन इज 16,000 eons. Imagine, 16,000 eons is the lifespan in the highest realm. What does it mean? It's almost like infinity. For us, it is infinity. So you can understand क्या हो रहा है. And it needs a Buddha for us to tell us, अरे क्या हो रहा है, देखो तो सही. Know and see. That's what he's saying. He says, I have known and seen. I'm telling you that. So that is the way it explains. He doesn't want to argue with anything because that is not his way of teaching. He doesn't want to argue तुम इसमें ये खराबी है, ये कमी है, वो कमी. जब वो सच्चक पीछे पड़ जाता है तो फिर उसको बता देते हैं भैया. उसको भी सवाल पूछ के ही बताते हैं. जैसे अनंत लखन सूत्र में सवाल पूछे जाते हैं, बिल्कुल उसी तरह से उसको पूछते हैं और वो जवाब नहीं देता. फिर वो उसको he uses other methods also. कि देखो ऊपर देखो, तुम्हारे वो वज्र पानी खड़ा, अगर जवाब नहीं दोगे हाँ या नहीं में तो वो अपना काम करेगा. So that's a colorful way of getting answers from others. But he doesn't try to disprove anybody. यहाँ पे वो उसका origin बता रहे हैं कि ये कैसे पैदा हुए. And to me it makes absolute sense.
नहीं, वो तो सब ठीक है, वो एग्रीड.
ये जो हमारे बाकी और क्वेश्चन का कोई, बाकी और किसी क्वेश्चन का कोई मतलब नहीं है हमारे लिए.
रॉन्ग व्यूज तो
थर्ड सुनो मेरी बात भैया, मैं तुमको तो कह ही सकता हूँ, यू आर माय चाइल्डहुड फ्रेंड. बाकी सारे सवालों का कोई महत्व नहीं है. अरहंत कहाँ जा रहे हैं, नहीं जा रहे हैं, मैं वो उस ट्रेडिशन वाले अरहंत बने कि नहीं, सब बन जाए यार. हम तो यही चाहते हैं, हम तो हमेशा यही प्रार्थना करते हैं, यही हमारा मन में आता है, भवतु सब मंगलम. बट उसमें भी हम कह देते हैं रखंतु सब देवता. बताओ.
हाँ जी. दोनों ही कंबाइन कर लेते हैं.
वो ट्रेडिशन चला रहा है बिकॉज देवास आर सपोज टू बी फॉर रक्षा. आई रेड इट आउट टू यू फ्रॉम द रतन सुत्ता. वो उनको ड्यूटी दी गई है.
जी जी जी.
So there is a very beautiful blend of Devas in the Buddhism. They are shown their true place. They are motivated to work and get liberated. And since they are very good beings with good wisdom, good generosity, good understanding of the teachings, then obviously they will be very good people with a lot of compassion. There are suttas in which even after the Devasur Sangram, Sakka कहता है ये बेचारा क्यों
नहीं, वो
इतना
तो ठीक है भाई, मैंने कहा जी, जो हम इन्वोक करते हैं ना कि बुद्धास को, अरहंस को अपनी सिक्योरिटी के लिए, अपने वेल बीइंग के लिए, तो इन्वोकेशन का जो प्रोसेस है वो
let me put it again for your sake.
कॉमन.
Please explain. Let me explain it. This is a way of humbling ourselves. For me, this is a way of humbling. मुझे ये अहंकार ना हो जाए कि मेरे कहने से किसी कुछ हो रहा है. That's it. मैं कह रहा हूँ बाबू तो सब माला तो सबका मंगल हो जाएगा ना बाबा, मेरे में कोई ऐसी शक्ति नहीं है. दिस इज माई विश, बट आई हैव कॉन्फिडेंस that if this wish resonates in the heavenly realm, it will happen, something will happen. And there are anecdotal evidences available with large number of bhikkhus, large number of laypersons, where suddenly some help is available, what we call as coincidence. Suddenly some help becomes available and situation which was never expected. So those are the kind of things which are usually attributed to the kindness of the, you can say Dhamma, you say Dhamme Have Rakhachi Dhammachari. This is one of the teaching of Buddha, that Dhamma protects those who follow it. How does it protect? Through these agents. Through these agents of Dhamma. These are the protect. These they protect because they feel happy that you are doing something virtuous. So they help you. There's that story of young bhikkhu going on, very young bhikkhu going rounds round, और रास्ते में उसको एक कमल का फूल मिलता है, उसकी सूंघ ले लेता है. एंड देवा कम्स आउट, क्या किया तूने, ये सूंघ लिया इसको? ये तो बहुत अच्छा था. कहते लेकिन तूने तो अदिना दाना दान हो गया ना. ओहो, मुझे याद ही नहीं रहा कि ये भी अदिना दाना हो गया. आगे से ख्याल रखूंगा, बट तुम मेरे को ना बताते रहना, गलती हो जाए. उसने कहा वाह, मेरे को यही काम रह गया कि मैं रोज तुमको ही बताता रहूँ कि मैंने कहाँ गलती कर दी है. बी माइंडफुल, बी अवेयर, भगवान की ये टीचिंग है और उसको ठीक से फॉलो करो. There are stories available, you know? And we read in Brahmajala Sutta that Deva comes and tells him, भाई वहां चले जाओ, वहां पे तुम्हारा कल्याण हो जाएगा. So they are seen as promoters of Dhamma, especially those who have tasted the Dhamma, and those who are in the highest realms of the fourth jhana, those pure abodes, they are anagamis. Imagine, anagamis. Atanatiya Sutta begins with anagamis coming down to the our Rajgeha and that mountain, and first praising the assembly of that whole assembly, they are praising them. So you are powerful beings available in that realm. Imagine, anagamis are available. And if they become arhants there and their lifespan is still not executed, they are there. They are there available for help. What more? So if you say arhantanam tejanam rakham bandhami sabbasu, yes, they are there. They are there to help you in that realm. So it's not a kind of imagination. I mean, of course, one may say all these 31 lokas are imagination, then I can't say anything. But if you believe in that realms, their top 5 realms of the form realm are of pure abodes. The whole Mahayana tradition, Tibetan tradition invokes those agencies, pure abodes agencies. Amitabha, what they call. They are supposed to be people of that abode and they seek their help. So if they believe that they will help them, I don't call them superstitious. That's the point. If I have a purely secular setup, understanding, purely quote unquote scientific understanding, then obviously they're superstitious. And that's what I also used to do for quite some time. In fact, that Thai coming in contact with Thailand, going to monasteries and seeing the practices and talking to them and understanding made us see that, yeah, there is some value in it, great value in that. There's a great value in chanting, great value in the offerings, puja. There's great value in that. It humbles you. It puts you in connection with higher beings who are more powerful than you and who can give you help. That's the way the change happens. That's the way our relationship to the deities and others, devas and others, becomes healthier. Okay? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Time है. There's still some time. Yes, Deepak. अच्छा दीपक हो गए. दीप्ति हाँ.
सर मेरा क्वेश्चन आपने एक्चुअली पार्शियली आंसर कर दिया बट आई आल्सो हैड दिस कमेंट दैट जो आप बार बार एम्फसाइज कर रहे हैं कि ये जो सूत्र है ये व्यूज के कॉजेस को बता रहा है. एक्चुअली आई फाउंड इट वेरी हेल्पफुल बिकॉज समवेयर मैं भी ऐसे इसे ले रही थी कि अगर ये ऐसा किसी ट्रेडिशन का व्यू है तो उनकी प्रैक्टिस भी वही है एंड इट इज लीडिंग टू सम आउटकम which I mean some outcome basically, but you clarified कि this is just pointing to the causes. One thing I found very helpful in today's presentation is जो आपने ये बात बोली कि हम या तो पीछे को लेके क्यूरियस रहते हैं या फ्यूचर को लेके एंशियस रहते हैं एंड दैट एंजाइटी एंड कनेक्टिंग इट टू द क्रेविंग फॉर एग्जिस्टेंस और जस्ट क्रेविंग फॉर प्लेजेंटनेस हैज कॉज्ड फॉर दीज व्यूज टू इमर्ज. तो मैं ये सोच रही थी कि जो ये लोग बहुत गहरे ध्यान में जाके उच्च अवस्थाओं में जाके दे आर फाइंडिंग और इंटरप्रेटिंग कि ऐसे करके दिस इज व्हाट हैपेंस टू द बीइंग एंड द एग्जिस्टेंस. हाउ इज इट रिलेटेड टू देयर craving? And I just want to explain that a little more. So let's say that there's this fear of death or the drive to exist. And then that person is going in a meditation और वो बहुत गहरे ध्यान कर रहे हैं. And then what are they trying to find out? They're trying to find out कि मैं इस existence को कैसे continue करूं, or they are trying to find out मैं कौन हूं और उसमें
very much simpler than that. जो speculations about future वो कैसे बने? वो ध्यान करने वाले ने देखा कि मेरे साथ जो ध्यान करने वाला मर गया ये गया कहाँ? And he developed those psychic powers to see, अरे ये तो उस लोक में चला गया और वहां पे तो मजे ही मजे हैं बिल्कुल. He's enjoying. He can see the mind state of that person. He can feel by reaching that jhana. अब सेकंड ध्यान में उसको इतना शुद्ध शांति और इतनी प्रसन्नता मिलती है, वो कहता है यही तो आत्मा है और क्या है. सच्चित आनंद इसी को तो कहते हैं. सत्य भी है, चित्त भी है, आनंद भी है, सब कुछ तो है. उसको पहला ध्यान ही ऐसा लग जाएगा. दूसरे वाले को कह रहा है अरे हाँ वो तो है लेकिन इससे भी ऊपर है भाई. तीसरे वाले का इससे भी ऊपर है, चौथे ने कहा इससे भी. सो दैट्स हाउ दिस इज हैपनिंग. That's how various realms, it depends on how they are accessing various realms and being able to see. This is exactly what is written in the sutta. कि वो percipient immortality का इस तरह से बना, नॉन परसिपियंट का बना जो उस रेल में पहुंच गया जहाँ पे कि उसका जन्म हो गया, जहाँ सिर्फ कोई संज्ञा ही नहीं थी. और आठवें ध्यान वाला नीदर परसिपियंट नॉन परसिपियंट, आठवां ध्यान, उसमें जो जाके देखा उसने कहा यार कुछ भी नहीं है, लेकिन एकदम calmness and quietness of an unimaginable extent. Now, if somebody has had this experience, for example, of bhanga at different levels, there are different levels of that. And when I practiced it for considerable time, I could see there's a grosser form, there's a subtler form, there's a still subtler form. So exactly same thing is happening here. First jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. The experiences as the experience becomes subtler, it becomes so profound and so peaceful and kind of blows you up, in the sense of you get a tremendous amount of I don't know what word to use. So the feeling of bliss which follows from there is unimaginable. It becomes sometimes uncontrollable. So obviously, अगर मेरी परसेप्शन में ये है कि कुछ आत्मा है, मैंने सुना हुआ है, और मैं उसमें एक व्यू बना हुआ है कि मैं तो हूँ, उसको लगेगा हाँ मैंने सुना हुआ है, वेदों में कहा है कि सच्चित आनंद है, यही तो है. That's it. और जो एटर्नलिज्म का बेसिक थ्योरी आई पास्ट को देख के, उसने अपना पिछला जन्म देखा, फिर उससे पिछला देखा, फिर उससे भी, वो कहता हर जन्म में मैं था यार, और इससे ज्यादा कि आप मैंने 10 ईयन तक देख लिए तब भी मैं था, तो ऑब्वियसली मैं ही हूँ. अब वो कौन बताएगा that the person who did the karma and the person who is reaping the karma are neither same nor different? ये कौन बताएगा? That is where the Buddha's insight lies. To be able to see the momentariness of the consciousness and not get carried away by its continuity. अगर कोई चीज बहुत तेजी से बदलती रहती है तो उसमें कंटिन्यूटी लगती है. वी नो इट वेरी कॉमन एक्सपीरियंस है. आप नियॉन साइंस का आप एक लाइट को घुमा के देख लीजिए, पंखा घूमता है देख लीजिए, वो ये तो थोड़ी हल्की सी स्पीड से घूम रहे हैं, वहां पे तो फ्रीक्वेंसी इज इन मिलियंस ऑफ हर्ट्स. आपको क्या पता, इट इज जस्ट लाइक स्ट्रेट लाइन, कांस्टेंट. दैट्स वेयर द इनसाइट इज, दैट इज एग्रीइंग. या उनसे एक सवाल पूछा गया एक सूत्र में, एक ने, कि भाई जो आप कहते हो पिछले जन्म का कर्म है, तो जो पिछले जन्म में जिसने कर्म किया वो वही है क्या जिसने कर्म का फल भोगा? नो. अच्छा, वो उससे बिल्कुल डिफरेंट है? नहीं, डिफरेंट भी नहीं है. ये क्या है यार, कोई जवाब तो बताओ. तो समझना पड़ेगा ना क्या प्रोसेस है. इट्स ए प्रोसेस विच इज गोइंग ऑन. The moment the question is framed in, because you can frame a question like that it will presuppose existence. If I am inquiring into who am I, it presumes there is somebody who has to be found. See, that's it. It needs a Buddha to figure out that ये इसका मतलब ये होता है. अब वो लॉजिक में ये बातें आती हैं, मैथमेटिकल लॉजिक में इस तरह की बातें आती हैं कि आप कंफ्यूज हो जाओगे. सो उससे थोड़ा हमें इंसाइट मिला है. इट्स नॉट एज सिंपल एज यस और नो. There are some questions you can't answer then because you are putting the question in a different frame of reference. You have a basic assumption. अब मैं तुमसे पूछूं तुमने चोरी करना छोड़ दिया है, हाँ या नहीं, मैं जवाब दूं. अब क्या जवाब दूंगी? तुमने चोरी की ही नहीं है तो जवाब क्या दोगी? हाँ दोगी तो फंस जाओगे, ना दोगी तो फंस जाओगे. So it needs explanation of the process. That's what exactly is happening. It needs explanation of the process of rebirth. There is rebirth, but no being who is reborn. I mean, it looks so funny, na? There is karma, but no one who is doing the karma. No one who is reaping. ये क्या है? अब इसको आप लॉजिक से कैसे समझेंगे? That's where the difficulty is really.
तो फिर हमारे लिए एज ए टेक अवे, मतलब मुझे ऐसे लग रहा है मैं दो टेक अवेज हैं कि एक तो ये कि टू बी वेरी माइंडफुल दैट वेयर आई मे बी ascribing to some of these viewpoints myself consciously or unconsciously, क्योंकि वो सब इतने हमारे environment के अंदर हैं. And the other thing which struck me quite a bit today जो ये था कि anxiety about future. So when I do imagine about myself as a future, अभी मुझे लगता है मैं इस जन्म में तो मुक्त होने वाली नहीं हूँ, अगला जन्म तो है, तो I am seeing a continuity for myself as a person. या even past के बारे में भी सोचती हूँ, हालांकि आपने बहुत बार कहा है कि karmic ancestors and so on, but the mind is not in a place to say कि वो मैं नहीं थी. So there is that inherent assumption almost like कि हाँ एक solid में चल रही हूँ, तो उसको शायद challenge करने के लिए discussion I have found it very useful.
In the next short session, I'll talk about the learnings. And there this question will also be addressed. जो आपने अभी पूछा है ना, it will be addressed to a sutta so that I don't get involved in between.
Sir, extending this question further, there is actually nobody who attains nirvana. It's just
Yeah.
the end of something, some process. So
Yeah.
there is no person who is attaining nirvana.
जी,
Is that a correct way of expressing
बिल्कुल
it?
बिल्कुल. There is no person in beginning itself.
Right.
There is no person here. That is such a difficult thing to understand, that there is no person yet there is suffering. ये क्या बात हुई? तो it's so counterintuitive, na? That's this very genuine difficulty, and I can understand how difficult it is to. I mean, we may have understood very thoroughly, yet instinctively वही बात चलती रहती है साथ साथ.
हाँ, जो दीप्ति जी कह रही हैं वो सकाय दिट्ठी तो नहीं जाती फिर भी
हाँ,
इतना
उसके
इतनी
लिए
आसानी
बहुत
से.
गहराई से बार बार उसको, उसके अराइजिंग को देखा था. वो जो ये गुर है ना, ये वाला, दिस इशू ऑफ समुदय, निरोध, असाध, आदिनव एंड निस्सरण, a very fundamental concept which can be applied to any experience. I've written here feeling, but it can be applied to any experience. All khandas, all ayatanas, everywhere. Actually वहां पे तो सात थे, हमने दो ही कर दिए, दो हटा दिए. समुदय, first is the concept, understanding that concept, then samudaya, nirodh, then the path. It is removed because people assume कि path तो मालूम है हमें, because everywhere it is eightfold path. And then the key issue is the understanding adinava of the experience, seeing the danger involved in that experience. जो आस्वादन है, आस्वादन तो अच्छा लगता है ना, उसमें खतरा क्या है वो नहीं देख पाते आप.
फॉर्मूला तो पता है लेकिन फॉर्मूले को
प्रैक्टिस करनी है.
प्रैक्टिस करना बड़ा मुश्किल
जब
काम है.
भी, that's why yesterday also I was mentioning, whenever there is a pleasant experience, immediately we should look at it very carefully and see how am I enjoying it, and what is the danger in that. If I continue with that enjoyment, उसका danger क्या होगा, वो कहाँ ले जाएगा मुझे. वो briefly put, some teachers से, मैंने उसको इतना एंजॉय करके उपादान बना लिया तो एक जन्म एक्स्ट्रा हो गया, ऐड हो गया. So this way we can, just to kind of create a upsurge in the thinking कि भाई सजग रहो. Yeah. That is the important thing ना, आदिनव को अंडरस्टैंड करना. प्रेजेंट में क्या आदिनव है कि वो एक तो इम्परमानेंट है, दूसरा वो एडिक्टिव है, वो आपको एडिक्शन बनाता है. तो आपकी जो लेटेंट टेंडेंसी है क्रेविंग की, वो बढ़ती चली जाएगी, राग बढ़ता चला जाएगा. और राग बढ़ेगा तो अयम तना पौनु भविका दुख. बस सीधा सिंपल है. ये जो तना है वो पौनु भविका है, पुनर्जन्म देती है. तो यू आर
अगर आप
अश्योर्ड.
ध्यान से देखो तो दिखाई देता है वो सब,
हाँ
कि अगर ध्यान से देखो तो सब दिखाई देता है, लेकिन अनफॉर्चुनेटली भूल जाते हैं उसको देखना.
हाँ, दैट इज द रियल वेरी. दैट्स व्हाई सती इज ट्रांसलेटेड एज मेमोरी, रिकलेक्शन. सती को जो हिंदी में ट्रांसलेट स्मृति किया गया है संस्कृत में, काफी अप्रोप्रिएट है. वी नीड टू रिमेम्बर टू बी माइंडफुल एक्चुअली. दैट इज द रियल प्रॉब्लम, बिकॉज द एक्सपीरियंस कैरीज अस अवे सो मच कि वो सब भूल जाता है, आदि ना निस्सरण सब भूल जाता
सर एक एक चीज मैं थोड़ा सा, अब मैं कुतर्क कर सकती हूँ ये बात बोल करके ऐसा लगेगा, लेकिन जो टू फाइंड कंक्लूजन इन द Buddha's teaching is also like it's a step towards it,
है.
or we're just actually, though we are understanding अभी हम आज जो पढ़ा है और अपने आप को जितना समझने की कोशिश करेंगे, हम हमारा व्यू कैसा है, बिल्कुल ठीक है कि हम ऐसा सोच रहे हैं, लेकिन कहीं ना कहीं एक साथ साथ मैं देख रही हूँ कि एक कंक्लूजन वाला जो है ना, टू गिव अ कंक्लूजन, ये वाला जो बीमारी है ना सर, आई मीन आई विल से बीमारी, बिकॉज एवरीथिंग वी वांट इट इन कंक्लूजन, कि उसके सबके आंसर्स पता होने चाहिए हमारे को. सो इट्स अ वेरी मतलब ये टेंडेंसी है. अब मुझे नहीं मालूम बाकी सब लोगों की है या नहीं है, लेकिन मैंने देखा है कि ये साथ साथ आती रहती है ये, और फिर इसको पीछे करना पड़ता है. अब
what can you give एग्जांपल, थोड़ा समझ आ जाए? क्योंकि ये जो टिपिकल मॉडर्न स्केप्टिकल थॉट है ना, उसका मैं जो अगर समझा हूँ, आप उसकी बात कर रही हैं.
सर
क्या आप किसी पे विश्वास मत करो यार,
जैसे
मतलब
अगर हम अभी समझने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं कि बुद्धा ने 62 व्यूज के बारे में, उन्होंने उनके एक्सपीरियंस के बारे में ही हैज एक्सप्लेन्ड कि व्हाई दे आर रॉन्ग. अब नाउ व्हेन वी रीड, व्हेन वी स्टडी, इट इज एन ऑटोमेटिक प्रोसेस कि वी ट्राई, दो वी आर असेसिंग हम कहीं कहाँ पर हम कैसे चल रहे हैं, या हमारा थॉट फ्यूचर के लिए कैसा है, इस असेसमेंट के साथ साथ एक कंक्लूजन भी आ जाता है इसके साथ साथ, ऐसा दिखता है.
कंक्लूजन क्या मतलब, एग्जांपल दो
कंक्लूजन
ना
से
इसमें.
तात्पर्य ये है कि वी डोंट सी देर इज अ प्रोसेस. भगवान से देर इज अ प्रोसेस,
प्रोसेस ऑफ व्हाट?
प्रोसेस ऑफ अराइजिंग एंड एक्सटिंग्विशमेंट. हाँ, अभी तो मैं उतना ही लूंगी जितने मेरे उसमें आ रहा है, और यही इसी का बड़ा बड़ा रूप होता जाता है. एंड इट जस्ट मे बी लाइफ आगे जा, मतलब बेसिकली इम्पर्मानेंस का जितना ज्ञान बढ़ेगा उतना वो. तो अब लेकिन फिर भी इसमें कंक्लूजन भी है ना कि भगवान ने ऐसा बोला. कैन यू मतलब मैं आपको क्या
नहीं नहीं,
एक्सप्रेस कर
वो
रही
तो
हूँ.
इसमें तो सिंपल सी बात है. दिस इज द क्वेश्चन ऑफ श्रद्धा. सिंपल थिंग. नो नो, नो हैंकी पैंकी अबाउट इट. इट इज द क्वेश्चन ऑफ श्रद्धा. I have practiced Buddha's path. I have practiced other paths for 10 years, practiced Buddha's path for 40 years. And as a result of practice, I have verified substantial amount of his teachings. And therefore, I'm just mentioning me, it must be true of you, most of you also. Just as an example, तो कि वो ऐसे मैं किसी और पे ना डालूं. And as a result of that experience, I have verified that whatever he says, whatever teachings I understood and practiced, they were correct. So I believe he has no reason to fool me with his Brahmajala Sutta. So if I don't understand it, I take it as a challenge to me. जैसे मैंने कल भी शायद कहा था कि मैंने 15 साल पहले पढ़ा था, नहीं समझ में आया. फिर नई किताब आ गई भिक्खू बोधी की, फिर पढ़ा, फिर भी नहीं आया. फिर सोचा चलो आ जाएगा तब. वन थिंग कुड बी आई कुड जस्ट थ्रो इट आउट. यार बकवास है, क्या बकवास है. मैंने ये थोड़ा ना है कि सारे रिव्यू गलत हैं और तुम्हारा रिव्यू ठीक है. ये तो अहंकार की बात हो गई. आई कुड इजीली से दैट, बट दैट इज माई श्रद्धा. नाउ यू कैन चैलेंज इट. यू आर वेलकम टू चैलेंज इट. नो प्रॉब्लम, सर्टेनली. You can keep it as a
नहीं,
skeptical, you can keep it
I
as a
am of the
doubt.
view, I am not saying कि challenge, I am not challenging. I am saying to be cautious for
When you say conclusion,
us.
when you say no, I
कंक्लूजन
am
से तो
also putting,
हमारा हुआ ना ये, मैं
I am
लगाऊंगी अगर
putting
लगाऊंगी
also
तो.
you in the same
दिस इज
spot.
माय
When you
अंडरस्टैंडिंग
say
एंड
that
आई शुड
it
बी
is
वेरी
concluding,
कॉशियस
yeah,
ऑफ
it is
माय.
concluding. Of course, it is
नहीं,
concluding.
बट
Buddha's
दैट इज
teachings are.
भगवान्स कंक्लूजन, नॉट माय कंक्लूजन.
I have accepted it, and therefore I am practicing accordingly. What more? I can't conclude it. I don't have the ability to see those eons and realms. I don't have, but I accept it and see, therefore, that this philosophy is not correct for me to follow. That's it. That if I have the remnants of that philosophy in my life, I must be careful. That's all. I'm not going about telling others that तुम्हारी philosophy गलत है. मुझे कुछ लेना देना नहीं. मुझे किसी को कोई समझाने की जरूरत नहीं है. मुझे अपने को समझाना है. This teaching is Buddha is giving to me, not to a Advaita master. No, he's giving to me. And I am understanding and I am just sharing with you. You can मैंने शुरू में ही कहा था, you can easily reject it कि गलत है. I don't accept it because we want that all the teachers. हमारे ने तो यही सुना है, एकम सत बहुधा विप्रवदन्ति. सब एक सत्य एक है और सब लोग अलग अलग बोलते हैं. कितना अच्छी बात है.
सर
सारे
मैं नहीं बोल रही.
तो नहीं ना, सुनो पूरी बात तो सुन लो. तो what I am saying definitely is it is a conclusion for me. It is not a hypothesis. It is not a doubt. That's it.
So
Now you
if
can
I leave
now you
it
can question.
open, if I leave it open, let my experience.
Yeah, you can leave it. Yeah, you're welcome to
If
leave it
I
open.
leave it open, then
But
what are
what will
the
happen?
consequences
What
for
will
that?
happen is other philosophies, thought processes will intrude upon you, and your practice will get dhila dhila.
अच्छा.
That is the point.
I'll reflect on this aspect जो
हाँ,
आप कह रहे हैं
बिल्कुल।
कि
क्योंकि
this
या तो ऐसा होता है कि हम सारे चीज जैसे त्योहार मनाते हैं और ऑब्जर्वेंसेस करते हैं, वी डू इट एज ए परफेक्टली मैनर, वी जस्ट डोंट केयर, वी जस्ट डू इट, इन्हें कुछ कर दो यार। बट अगर कोई मेरे जैसा पागल है जो कुछ भी करता है तो उसको समझने की कोशिश करता है, शिवरात्रि मनाता है तो समझता है ये शिव का कंसेप्ट क्या है, क्या ये, हु द हेल इज दिस, if there is Ram Navami, if there is Krishna Janmashtami, who the hell are they? What are they? Why are we celebrating them birthday? हम तो अपना ही नहीं मनाते, उसका क्यों मना रहे हैं, क्या है? So we try to understand कि भाई उसमें कुछ अच्छे गुण होंगे तभी तो. So we try to find out what are the good qualities and we benefit from it. But am I going to imbibe the teachings? See, you have to understand there's a difference between inspiration and practice, inspiration and instruction. Let me repeat it again. You can get inspired from everybody. You can get inspired from Adi Shankara, you can get inspired from Angulimala, you can get inspired from Ramanuja. I've studied all of them to reasonable extent. Yeah, everything was inspiring. Goswami Tulsidas is inspiring. Shiva Sutras are inspiring. Yeah, they're all inspiring. But what is the instruction which I'm going to follow in my life? What is the practice I'm going to follow? Am I going to follow those worldviews? There was considerable time I spent in that. Considerable time I spent in trying to expect ये वर्ल्ड व्यू क्यों नहीं, इसमें क्या खराब, ये क्यों नहीं फॉलो करूं, मैं इसको भी तो कर सकता हूँ, इसको मैच कर दूं जो तांत्रिक ट्रेडिशन है शिव का, क्योंकि हमारे कश्मीर का वो शैव फिलोसफी का ट्रेडिशन है, उसको पढ़ा, उससे मैच करे, उसमें कई चीज़ें मैच करती हैं, वहाँ पे भी आनापान करती बात आती है, कई चीज़ें मैच भी करती हैं, कई चीज़ें नहीं करती, उसके व्यू को समझो, उसमें व्यू अलग है, इसमें व्यू अलग है, तो अब you have to really see then, na? You have to decide कहाँ जाना है मुझे. I can decide anything. But my intent was always, because I had gone through 10 years of practice of Advaita and others, I had to figure out भाई कुछ तो करो. उसका रेजिडुअल इफेक्ट तो था ना कि यार बहुत अच्छा है, अरे इतना बढ़िया चीज है. It has such a powerful impact on you. You're not the body, mind and so on. But then you have to see. So I had to struggle and figure out कि भाई क्या finally करना है. Because there are traditions in Buddhism which follow Advaita. Mahayana, Tibetan, they all follow Advaita. So you have to choose, decide. If you're really a sincere seeker, you have to decide मुझे क्या करना है. That is the point which I was mentioning. This common response to views is this. कि भाई views के बारे में ये responses possible हैं. And at some stage or the other, I've gone through some of that. I didn't do the second one. 3, 4 सब देख करके देखे हैं. उनके दुष्प्रभाव भी अनुभव किया है. इसलिए हमको कंक्लूजन निकालना पड़ेगा अगर हमें साधना करनी है तो. However immodern and antique it may feel, we have to derive a conclusion. मुझे साधना कैसे करनी है भाई, उसके बारे में मैं एक्सप्लोर करता रहूं तो ठीक है, वो अलग बात है. Then I am still trying to figure out whether I have to follow this path or not. That's perfect. But we have to see how long. ना 40 साल के बाद भी अगर मैं एक्सप्लोर ही कर रहा हूँ तो फिर बिग प्रॉब्लम.
मेरे को कोई कंफ्यूजन नहीं है,
नहीं
1% भी कंफ्यूजन नहीं है उस बारे में.
हाँ तो या देन यू शुड रिफ्लेक्ट ऑन इट कि भाई मुझे कॉन्फिडेंस क्यों नहीं हो रहा भगवान की टीचिंग पे.
एक कंफ्यूजन नहीं है इस बारे में कि मैं यही बात करने का है.
देन व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय कि कंक्लूजन नहीं होना चाहिए, अभी तुमने फिर ये क्या
सर
स्टेटमेंट.
कंक्लूजन से मतलब एक ये टेंडेंसी होती है ह्यूमन माइंड की कि वो कुछ ना कुछ चाहता है कि बस पकड़ ले ना,
हाँ
जैसे
तुमने तो पकड़
पकड़
लिया ना,
लेते हैं.
जब तुम कहती हो कि कंफ्यूजन नहीं है तो इसका मतलब तुमने पकड़ लिया उस बात को कि ये
पकड़
बात,
लिया
तो
बस.
पकड़ लिया तो इसको छोड़ना चाहती हो, क्या करना.
नहीं, कतई नहीं, बिल्कुल भी नहीं,
फिर व्हाट
पॉसिबल
डू यू
नहीं.
मीन, आप बोल क्या रही हो, कर क्या रही हो. देयर इज अ टोटल कॉन्ट्रडिक्शन बिटवीन
सर
व्हाट यू आर
लेकिन
सेइंग एंड व्हाट यू आर
कंक्लूजन
डूइंग.
से तात्पर्य ये कि हम भी एक जैसे अगर सपोज मैं भगवान को सुन रही हूँ, तो कहीं ना कहीं मेरा फेथ है, मेरी प्रैक्टिस है, उसके आधार पर मैं जितना जितना समझती जा रही हूँ, उस उतने उतने समझ के हिसाब से मैं उसे एक्सेप्ट करती जाती हूँ। लेकिन जब मैं उसका एंड रिजल्ट व्हेन आई रीड, आई मीन कोई भी अगर ले पर्सन पढ़ता है कि बिकॉज भगवान हैज दीज थ्री थ्री जो कि भाई आप फ्यूचर देख सकते हो, पास देख सकते हो अपने, तो ये जो अभिन्यास अभिन्यास, तो वो अगर वो उनका नॉलेज था ना, मेरे नॉलेज पे जो आएगा मैं अपना बात करूंगी।
Abhinya is not an integral part of Buddha's teaching. यार हम कैसी बात
इट
कर
इज
रहे
नॉट
हैं?
अ पार्ट ऑफ द
They are
टीचिंग,
they are part of
इट इज हिज
Buddhahood,
नॉलेज, इट
arahanthood.
नॉट माय नॉलेज।
हम वहां तक ना बढ़े ना। You're really confusing yourself. Please understand. We are following the path. उस path के बारे में उनको conclusion होना चाहिए कि ये path ठीक है. That is a conclusion about the path. That is important. Not that what Buddha achieved, I will also achieve. That will be too much of a expectation from myself. If I start believing that I will achieve arahanthood, I think I need to go to a psychiatrist. I mean, we understand. इतने साल साधना करके हम समझते हैं भाई क्या पाथ है और कितना मुश्किल पाथ है। बट ऐसा नहीं है कि मुझे कंक्लूजन नहीं हुआ कि ये पाथ यही है, मुझे अभी एक्सप्लोर करना है पाथ को। ऐसा नहीं हो सकता। फिर तो मैं वो तब होता है जब आप शुरुआत कर रहे हैं, 1 साल 2 साल 3 साल। यू कांट कीप ऑन एक्सप्लोरिंग फॉर एटर्निटी। वो जब तभी मैंने कहा था कि वो स्केप्टिकल थॉट जो है ना वो बहुत डेंजरस है। कि नहीं नहीं, हमें किसी चीज को फाइनली एक्सेप्ट नहीं करना चाहिए, कंक्लूजन किसी भी चीज को कंक्लूजन नहीं मानना चाहिए। ये एक फिलोसफी है। स्केप्टिकल थॉट इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फिलोसफी इन मॉडर्न फिलोसफी। कि
सर
हर चीज के बारे में आप डाउटफुल रहो, नहीं तो फंस जाओगे, किसी कल्ट में चले जाओगे, किसी गलत विचार में फंस जाओगे। हमेशा डाउट बना के रखो, या गुड। बट वो डाउट खत्म नहीं करोगे तो साधना नहीं होगी। साधना में डाउट इज ए ऑब्स्ट्रक्शन। of the three fetters, doubt is the second fetter. First fetter is Sakayaditi, second is doubt. So ये मॉडर्न फिलोसफी की स्केप्टिकल थॉट के एंटीथीसिस है। तो इसलिए if you continue to have skepticism about the teaching, about the path, that is something which you should remove as quickly as possible. That is the point I wanted to bring to your notice. Okay?
जी सर, जी, थैंक यू।
Okay, so we can take either questions या कोई इसमें चर्चा हो अगर तो।
जैसा अभी हमने बात करी, कल भी रात को सुना, अभी भी सुना, तो ये इसमें मेरे को दो, और इससे पहले हमने कुछ चीज़ें डिस्कस की थी, तो उसके बाद वाकई माइंड में बहुत बदलाव आ रहा है। अभी जैसे हमने कसीना की बात की, और मैं यहाँ पे शिवलिंग की जो लोग पूजा करते हैं, मैं इन दोनों चीज़ों को कंपेयर कर रहा हूँ। क्योंकि किसी ज़माने में तो उसी तरह से वो मिट्टी का पुतला बना करके उसके सामने बैठते होंगे, और वो कैसे उन्होंने उसको शुरू किया, क्योंकि वो देवता मानते हैं शिव को, और उसकी आराधना करते हैं। तो वो देखने के बाद, फिर ये सब पढ़ने के बाद, तो ऐसा लगता है कि देयर इज नथिंग रॉन्ग इन डूइंग व्हाट फ्रेंड्स आर डूइंग, एंड इट्स अ डीप स्पिरिचुअल प्रैक्टिस बिकॉज दे डू सिट इन समाधि एंड गेन दैट अल्टीमेट थिंग। हाँ, अब ये है कि सोच में फर्क है कि बीच में एक भगवान की प्राप्ति, देयर समथिंग जो कि कोई बैठा है देख रहा है, बट when they are praying to the, I say gods, I mean देवता जैसे हम कहें, तो वो उसमें राम है, उसमें शिव है, उसमें और भी। तो मैं देख रहा हूँ कि ये जो हमारी संस्कृति है, इसको इवॉल्व होने में काफी समय लगा और इसको अच्छी तरह से लोगों ने समझा नहीं। तो हम इसी तरह से अपने सेलोज में बैठना चाहते हैं, बटना चाहते हैं। बट आफ्टर योर प्रेजेंटेशन इट लुक्स कि yeah, everything is fine so long we understand what is what and do not react to the things the way, I mean, just discard things or downplay or demean. I think that process is definitely taken care of by this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have all gone through these processes in our own life. So all that I've written is purely sharing of what various thought processes I have gone through and seen my friends go through it. And so it's very true that once we understand these jhanas, these realms of existence properly, and especially if you study the teachings of the Buddha properly, if you study all those things, there are hundreds of suttas where Devas are giving teaching actually. They actually go and, the standard method is they'll go and pay respects to the Buddha and make some statement. And in many of the cases, Buddha will approve in silence. And interestingly, in some cases, if you read that Devata Samyutta, Buddha will chant something and the Deva will come and chant something after paying respects. Buddha will repeat it with one word changed. So somebody is saying this is doing noble deeds is really the very, very good. And that will take us to liberation. He'll say, yeah, it's very good, but giving up self will take you to liberation. So this, I mean, when I studied that, I said, such a wonderful collection, because it tells you the view of a less evolved person and view of a fully evolved person, and you can see that. So I would strongly suggest you have those. They're very short suttas, most of them are short. Some are big, but most of them are very short. They're very, 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 very informative. Very informative. And some of them we have included in our chanting book, Tayan Gatha, then Aditya Sutta, then Bhikkhuni Sanyutta. Bhikkhuni Sanyutta, we have included all of it because there are just 10 suttas. And all that, even Mara is playing a very positive role in some sense for us. He challenges the Bhikkhunis and then they give it exposition on self, exposition on what is the confusion of self. And they're so powerful. So essentially, the whole process is either directly or indirectly telling us that the interaction with beings who are not visible is not a imagination or a kind of delusion. This is the reality. Only thing is we are not able to access. And there are suttas in which Buddha says that so many lay people have developed the psychic powers to be able to see them directly. In fact, there is a mention of a lady, I think Sujata or something is her name, who used to have the direct, where they developed the samadhi to such an extent that she used to invoke the king of Devas and he would come and take her offering. Okay. So there are such things are actually mentioned in the Tipitaka. Since we have Saddha, the Tipitaka is a record of what the Arhants said at the first council. This doesn't sound kind of out of the place and sudden added by other people in order to make it in congruence with the concept of Devas and other Indic religions. It doesn't seem like that. Because in whole of this Tipitaka, Buddha is going to Tushdeva Loka, teaching there his mother, who is in another Loka, and then there's a Mahamoggalana going to Indra and giving him a teaching by shaking his palace up, and so many such things. Then there are yakhas of various kinds, and those names are popular in Indian pantheon also. So they're given a Pali name, and then otherwise there's quite a bit of commonality in the devas of the Vedic religions and devas in the Buddhism teach, which Buddha mentions that he had met them or they have come and paid respects to him. So our hesitation and so-called scientific use says कि भाई हमको दिख नहीं रहा तो ये गलत है. that may not be as scientific as it seems. So if we can really overcome that, I felt in last 5-7 years, slowly we getting established, especially after visiting Thailand and seeing the practices and talking to some monks while you are doing, I actually even questioned some of the monks about this practices. And in some monasteries, Indian statues of Indian gods are there. So I asked him, "Kya hai?" He said, "You people are still caught in your science and you don't understand," and so many things. So it is a great relief to be in the sense that जो हमारे मन में एक उनके प्रति try to look down upon people in our own community, in our own friends. That's a unhealthy way of interpreting Buddha's teachings.
That's right.
And this sutta, all of the sutta is full of people who attain various realms of levels of meditation and see the beings in various realms, and on that basis they formulate theories. So that it clearly shows that all this is not a figment of anybody's imagination. So once we begin to accept it, then the difficulties we face in our, जो implicit है, ऐसा नहीं कि कोई सामने लड़ाई हो रही है, कुछ हो रहा है, but implicit discomfort होता है, यार क्या है ये, क्या कर रहे हैं, कुछ कहेंगे नहीं उसको अपने. It could be our mother or your daughter or somebody. We don't say anything, but yeah, अंदर से कुछ ना कुछ होता रहता है, and that gets silenced totally, which is a big relief.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
So if there is और किसी को अगर कुछ नहीं कहना है, then maybe I can ask. So this phrase karm kand, maybe you can make some commentary on what's the correct attitude towards that in light of what we just studied.
In the Ratan Sutta, the mention is made that the people who are making offerings to you, you should protect them. So the karma kand can be interpreted as a method of getting protection from devas, as a method of removing obstructions. And in the Paritta chantings which we see, we usually use take our devotion to Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha as a means of getting protection. In other, not only Vedic religion, in fact, in all Abrahamic religions also, concept of God is there. So there also, in all Indic religions, whichever one you take, and in fact throughout the world, most religions, the concept is there of higher beings, deities, whatever you call them. You may have different names for them. So the idea of invoking their blessings is a way of humbling yourself, is a way of reducing our ego, that we are in the control. And especially when our control fails, then we begin to wonder, kya hua? And then protection is sought. So the idea of seeking protection from higher beings is not being ridiculed by Buddha. In fact, is being suggested in many suttas. In Dhajjaga Sutta, again, he mentions that the Devas are asking, the Sakka is asking others that you look at my flag and that will give you a feeling of protection. But he mentions he's not completely free from craving, aversion, and fear himself. So that looking at him will not give you so much security as security you will get by chanting or having devotion towards Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, because Buddha is free from all craving, aversion, and delusion. So in that sense, if you take an objective view of the teachings, it seems that if the people are doing some rituals, they're primarily doing it for getting some protection or getting some benediction from the higher forces so that they may support them in their endeavors, which is in the Buddhist tradition is not looked down upon. It's seen as a part of the practice. We also do so many protection chantings. Since having come into contact with the Thai tradition, you learned about these protection chantings. And these chantings were done in Vipassana also, but we didn't do it. Respected Goenka ji used to do it. So the role of these chantings in terms of protection seems to be not a superstition. That's all I would say.
जी, so then going beyond chanting, I mean going beyond protection, जैसे जो worldly gains वाली बात है ना? So and so बेटे की शादी हो जाए, and then that's so maybe you can also make some comment.
Removing of obstructions is basically removing of obstructions. Protection and removing of obstructions in what you want to achieve. And the way of understanding, at least in my mind and in others, is that the offerings which are made with certain objectives are called offerings made with taints. So they don't lead to liberation from the cycle of birth and death. Even there are suttas in which Buddha talks of eightfold path with taints, eightfold path without taints. One in which there is an expectation, I will attain this, I will attain that, and so on. Where sense of self is carried along. It's very clearly made distinction. So he says people follow this also beginning, and then as they develop better, then they follow. Then they give up that, understand, and follow. So these could be seen as, for example, one thing it's very interesting to note. Buddha never told people to give up Agnihotra. His criticism of that was in terms of offerings of animals being made. He didn't tell anybody about stopping this whole thing and not doing it. His objection was that why are you killing animals as a part of sacrifice? At least I have not found anywhere him telling others this. And then he would give a spiritual twist to the whole process of fire, as happens in the Aditya Pariyaya Sutta. So some say it was a strategy to live in harmony with the others and all. I don't think Buddha would need you to strategize his teaching. I can't believe it. He must be telling what he saw. So there are many instances, even in modern times, and in some cases the prayers are heard. People say in some cases the prayers are not heard. Why? So the knowledgeable people say, because your karma was not there to get what you wanted. And all that the deities or devas or mystics or saints can do is to facilitate removal of some obstructions in the process of fructification of your own karma. So this kind of explanation I find very appropriate in sense of the intervention of deities in our aspirations of various kinds. Buddha says Dhamma have rakhati dhammachari and so on. What is Dhamma? It is the law of universe. So if you follow the path of Dhamma, which means Dana, Shila, Bhavana, which all of them, Dana also will help us. Shila will also help us. And Bhavana will help us even more. So Adi mein kalyankari, madhya mein kalyankari, ant mein kalyankari. So that's how we see it. So even offerings made to beings, the fruit we get is proportional to the merits of the being. So an offering made to a person here, the service offering made to a deva or offering made to the Buddha or an arhat have different results. So once you see, this is the point teaching of the Buddha. So once you see in that light, it seems that there must have been some merit in people who had the vision and interaction with the deities to do such an action. And as a matter of routine, it got inculcated in the culture of the country. So in many places, offerings are made to devas or yakhas, and in Kashmir they are made to yakhas, for example, on certain days, particular days. So we used to feel strange, but in the light of the teachings, we can begin to see a sense in them.
फिर जैसे जो खासकर कि वज्रयान में जो बोधिसत्व वगैरह का समझ है,
Yeah.
उसको थोड़ा maybe you can also make some commentary on reconciling that with not reconciling, but yeah, reconciling that bodhisattva business with how we understand dharma.
Yeah, most of these bodhisattvas are higher deities living in higher realms. And the concept of seeking their help and intervention is exactly in the same lines as the devas. Devas are also, after their long life is exhausted, they are reborn. Then again, they continue to live the life of purity, practice, and again they will be born in the Deva world. Or they may go from one Deva world to other, as we learned in the Sutta, when the beings from Abhasara Deva Loka, they got, after their life exhausted, they got reborn in the Brahma Loka, the great Brahma. And that's what the delusion, all that is recalled in the partial eternalism view. So we can see that there is that possibility, and the presence of pure abodes where anagamis are there. Anagamis with such level of samadhi, fourth jhana, are very powerful beings. So they can certainly help. They're full of compassion, obviously. A person who has purified his chitta to such a great extent is full of compassion. And that compassion manifests in terms of relieving suffering of others. That's the role of compassion. That's the natural outpouring of compassion. So whether we are able to access it and accept it, at least what can we do is that we don't look down upon them as inferior to us. That's a very, very big stumbling block in our path. Because implicitly, we are strengthening our ego. We are going totally against the anatta. Forget anatta. We are getting super atta. So we humbly know, yeah, there is, Buddha teaches, even in Tipitaka, Buddha is teaching some things of that kind. Ratan Sutta is a great example. These two verses which I chanted, they are a great example. They clearly mentioned. The higher beings, listen what I'm saying, pay attention, look after these human beings who are making offerings to you. Protect them. Atanati Sutta, clearly the Devas themselves, they themselves come and tell Buddha that many of our naughty yakhas are not happy with your teaching because you tell them to not to do drink and all that, and they don't approve of it, so they try to create disturbances for the people who do follow this path. So we have made this mechanism and told them that if they do this, we'll not allow them to come back. And therefore, there is, recall the the chant. In fact, what we call in our book as the short version of Atanatiya Paritta is exactly there in the sutta. The long version which we have done is a later modification, because in that sutta there are those three aspects are mentioned, various aspects of various devas in their direction and all that. But they start explaining the qualities of that realm, so which probably people thought is not necessary to put in protection. So the protection has been created by using that as a basis and putting it in different words, which we read as the larger version of Atanatiya Paritta. So they're directly being coming from them as a help to the meditators. You see, they are suggesting how to help the meditators, how to help the disciples, how to help the good people who want to progress in the path of Dhamma. So as to remove obstacles, they can remove obstacles. They can't kind of give us enlightenment. They can remove the obstructions in our practice. And sometimes the removal of obstructions is by creating questions, asking you questions, and which means forcing you to reflect on your own Shraddha, on your own confidence, on your own practice.
Professor, would you also like to comment on how some of these devas are able to actually help? If in some cases they do.
Yeah. In
Can you
Sutta,
comment on how they can actually, how you're saying removing the obstructions, so how the obstructions are actually removed by the devas?
Yeah, by creating the right thinking in the mind of the person.
Do they have that kind of power to do that?
Yeah, certainly. Okay. By responding to you in dream, that's very common. Or if you are a meditator, by making visions appear in front of you, that also is experienced by some. As for example, in Brahmajala Sutta, what is happening? A thought comes in his mind, and a Deva creates a reply to that thought in his mind. Oh, Bhaya, you're not an Arhant. And then there is a person who is an Arhant. So he gives him very, very important information, which transforms him totally. Similarly, that story of the young Samanera who smells the flower. I mean, normally one would think smelling a flower is a breaking of a monastic precepts. But he questions him, नहीं नहीं ऐसा नहीं है, तुमको भूल गया, तुम समझे नहीं ठीक से. So he's trying to help him in that manner. So that's the way the help is offered. There are stories in Thailand told to me personally, told to some of us, not me only, personally by one very eminent bhikkhu, about how difficulties in their construction of this stupa were totally inexplicable. They just couldn't figure out why the stupa they build with the best engineers of the Thailand, and it goes up to a certain height and falls down. And it happened 3 times. And then they invited one master who had the psychic abilities to see what is going on, and he found out that there were spirits that, who were in the Preta realm and other realms, who were tormented at that place. And then later it was discovered historically to be true that a massacre had taken place at that place. And they were so much, disgruntled with the Dhamma that they didn't allow that. They would create some disturbance in weather or some way they adopted to disturb the construction process. And then that master came and he chanted for their benefit. He shared his merits with them, and then the whole atmosphere changed and they could construct that stupa fully. Now, this is a direct first-hand account I'm telling you. And similarly, there are many stories in the commentorial literature of that kind. In Dhampada Athakathas, if you read, there are many stories of that kind.
Many stories. After reading those stories, this question arises, which you have answered now, that they do have the powers to do things which
Yeah,
are
the
difficult to
most
understand.
common way is appearing in dream or in meditator's vision.
That way, in the Bodhisattva stories, also a lot of devas
Yeah, they are
help at
basically,
various stages.
yeah. They are at the higher levels of practice. Those fourth jhana beings who have great compassion, who are full of equanimity, full of, all Brahma Viharas they are adept at. So they can adopt appropriate response to the situations. So when a deity says that when there is problem in the human world, I help them. In one of the scriptures, it is said, I appear to remove the obstructions in the path of the good people. So this is a typical bodhisattva vow, that I will work, meditate for the benefit of others and take everybody along with me. This is the bodhisattva vow.
Coming to the protection chants, the feeling I used to have earlier was that it is something internal to you, that you kind of derive inspiration from these chants to help yourself from the depths of your heart in some way. So that's the way I used to take all prayers and protection chants. So probably one has to modify that perspective.
No, that is also true. That's very, very true. But when we say Dhamma Have Rakhati Dhammachari, how is Dhamma going to help us? The beings who are powerful, they create conditions of that kind. They help us to see things in a better way. Suddenly we have an insight, suddenly we feel, it has happened so many times during our last few years. We're searching for something, not able to find, absolutely given up. And then suddenly somebody turns up and he says, come on, I'll take you there. In a totally desolate place where there's nobody and you can't figure out क्या करना है, वापस ही चलो यार, नहीं हो रहा. And suddenly some old man comes or he's there and he says, yeah, I know this person. I'll take you there. This actually happened with us. And a whole series of actions followed from there about buying the land and all that. So such things, we call it serendipity or coincidence. Yeah, that is true. That could be seen in that sense. But there is some cause-effect relationship which we are not able to see. That's the only point.
The other thing that the presentation of this Sutta Vayu has reinforced for me is the centrality of dependent origination in Bhagavan's teaching.
Yeah, certainly. The conditions are changed. Some of them are visible, some are invisible. So when invisible conditions change, we call it miracle, we call it the grace, or we call it intervention from Devas or whatever. But it's basically change of some invisible conditions for us.
I was referring to the sutta itself. Basically, dependent origination is the main theme. If you don't understand that, then you don't understand anything.
Then you can get views. The main learning which I have written in the next presentation is that the meditation is extremely good. Jhanas are very good. But if your view is not right, you'll get astray. Because the interpretation of jhana is what matters. Interpretation of meditative experience matters, not the experience by itself. If the meditative experience is interpreted wrongly, it can take you astray. Astray in the sense that astray from the liberation. Imagine a person who's striving, is so clear and confident of working and trying to go through the stream of liberation, and he ends up in a high Deva realm and he stays there for a million years. His enlightenment is delayed by that much time. You can look at it in that manner also. Of course, if he has that parami and he gets that
Thank you.
guidance in that realm, then he can practice in that realm also. Especially with the presence of anagamis in a highest realm, there's always a possibility of interaction. Out of compassion, they may come and interact and give such teachings. But you can start looking at the whole process in a totally different way.
Thank you,
It
sir.
changes your way of thinking. It changes your perspectives. It changes the practice which you want to do.
Thank you, sir.
जी दीपक जी
ये जो रिसेंटली हमारा राम मंदिर का कार्यक्रम हुआ था, तो उसमें जो भगवान राम की जो मूर्ति बनाई गई, उसके सराउंडिंग एक रिंग, यू शेप रिंग है, तो उसमें भगवान विष्णु के अवतारों के भी एनग्रेविंग की हुई थी। उसमें एक भगवान